holidays, it means to take part in the functions of that particular holiday. So for example, if I'm getting together with my family on Christmas, is that celebrating the holiday? Is that a religious function? To get together with my family? Alhamdulillah. No, it's not. What is the religious function? The religious function is going to church. The religious function is attending the Christmas Mass. All of these are the religious functions for that. But if all of my family is off on Christmas, or if all of my family is off on Easter, and I'm using that day to get together because it is a federal holiday, this is not celebrating. This is not celebrating. This is a very big difference. If my family is getting together and we're setting up a Christmas tree and we're singing Christmas carols, that's very different, right? That's actually partaking and that's celebrating in the holiday. But if I'm getting together with my family, because we're all off, there's nothing wrong with that. La ba's bi. It's not an issue. It's not a big deal at all. The second type of holidays, or the second type of get-togethers that many times people have, are the secular ones. So when we talk about Thanksgiving, when we talk about 4th of July, when we talk about New Year's, when we talk about, what are some other holidays that are there? Like Martin Luther King Day, for example, President's Day. President's Day. We have a number of these different holidays. These are all secular holidays. Right? These are holidays that are not associated with a particular religious function. Or even birthdays, right? This is something, again, this is not a significant, it is not a specific religious function. Is it permissible to celebrate those? Right? This is something that the celebration would be in line with how people are happy. So for example, on the 4th of July, what is a very common way of celebrating? Alhamdulillah, nobody celebrates 4th of July, right? Everybody's innocent here, right? Nobody's lit any firecrackers before in their life. But lighting firecrackers, this is one way of celebrating 4th of July. Thanksgiving, what is something that is very common that many people do? They'll eat turkey. So all of these different rusumat, right? All of these different functions and the things that are associated with those particular holidays, because they are not religious in nature, it is something that's completely permissible. The Prophet ﷺ, he allowed us and he gave us space for different functions that happen in our life. What are some functions that he ﷺ actually encourages us to slaughter for? I'm sorry? To celebrate. Eid is religious, so let's put those aside. I'm sorry? Weddings. Birthdays, the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't celebrate birthdays, right? But we'll talk about weddings. Birth, right? A birthday in the sense that when a child is born, yes. That's right. But like the aqiqah. So the Prophet ﷺ, he actually allowed the initiation and the celebration of certain events. Because with these events, we have other ones. What if I graduate? What if I get a new job? Moving to a new area and welcoming someone. These are things that happen time and time again. And someone might argue, okay, these things don't happen on a yearly basis. Graduations, they don't happen for me or you, right? You usually just graduate once. What about the institution? Right, the school. The school celebrates the graduation every single year because it is part of that institution. Just because something happens yearly, or just because something happens on an occasion, it doesn't necessitate that that thing is haram in and of itself. Why? Because there is no religious connotation with it. Are there scholars who would say that birthdays and graduations and all these things are haram? Yes, there are. And what is their proof? What do they say? They say ta'zeem no min anwa' al-ibadah. They say that honoring or celebrating is a type of worship. And because celebrating is a type of worship, it is not permissible. And other scholars will say this has nothing to do with worship. This has nothing to do with ibadah. Therefore, it is okay to take part in these holidays. But these are the two major opinions concerning this. Obviously, you're going to have a spectrum of opinions concerning all of this. And based off of this, you will have people who celebrate their birthdays and people who do not. It's not something that the community should be split over. It is not something that we should be fighting over. If somebody is comfortable doing it, there are scholars who will back him and who will support him. And if there are individuals who are not comfortable doing it, there are scholars who will back them and who will support them. It is not something that is fundamental to the religion. It's not. The fundamentals to the religion are 5, and those are the 5 pillars of Islam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And they are the 6 pillars of Iman that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. Anything else that the scholars have discussed means that it is up for discussion. And I have to look at the arguments, or I have to look at the person, because there are some people who I trust and there are some people who I don't trust. This is very natural. There are some arguments I'll understand and some arguments I won't understand. This is very natural. But all of those opinions, all of those arguments, all of those scholars, those are good for me. It doesn't mean that it is good for everyone. And it doesn't mean just because I'm convinced that I can use that conviction toward others or against others. And that is the beauty of a deen, right? That is the beauty of a religion. It's something that I follow and something that I believe. If I believe that birthdays are haram, then you know what is wajib upon me? To not celebrate birthdays. And if I believe it's mubah, if I believe it's permissible, then I have a choice. I can do it or I cannot. But can I go now and start dictating to others what I believe to be haram, halal, or what I believe to be haram? If I believe is jaiz, and Abu Sulaiman believes is haram, I can't go to him and be like, "Akhi, why don't you?" And he can't come to me and say, "Why do you?" Why? Because there are always going to be masail of khilaf. There are always going to be issues where people differ, and it's about understanding those differences and how to deal with those differences. If anybody has any requests for dua, we actually have a dua request page on the website. You can go to hijrah.org, and under the imam there's a dua request form, so please, I encourage everyone to utilize that. The reason that I have issue with the papers is because I don't know many times when the paper was sent up. This one I know, obviously, because it came now, but sometimes there are papers that have been sitting here for weeks. Sometimes there are papers that are from like some older people's other notes. So it's very important, please, just to have a system in place so that we have one place where I'm receiving it and one place I'm able to actually express that. This actually brings us to the last question now. What about those celebrations that are differed upon within Islam? And I can give 2 very clear examples. One of them, Laylat Nisf Sha'ban, right? It's an issue of heavy khilaf, an issue, the 15th of Sha'ban, on whether it should be celebrated or not. And you have a number of scholars who have spoken on this. And one which is very relevant to this month, which is Mawlid al-Nabawi, right? And this is something that is very relevant, inshallah. Basically, is there a difference of opinion on celebrating it? Yes, there is. There is a difference of opinion. And if there is a difference of opinion, there's another layer to this. Sure. Like Imam Suyuti, he said it was okay. He never had a problem with it. There's actually a history of a number of scholars who are okay with celebrating Mawlid. And there's a couple of reasons for that. And it's important to understand awjuh an-nadhr, right? It's important to understand why is it that they saw it to be permissible or why they saw it to be impermissible. The scholars who say it's impermissible, they say it's impermissible because it is. They say it's bid'ah, right? They say it's an innovation. This is something that was not practiced during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And those individuals who answer that, they say it's not a bid'ah because we are not ascribing a specific fadl, a specific virtue to this month or to this day. We're using it as a historical way to represent and remember the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And what's interesting is even the people who are anti-Mawlid, they will have a seerah conference in this month. It's very difficult for me to see the difference in that. It's just a different way of celebrating, right? If you're utilizing a historical marker, if you're saying that the Prophet ﷺ was born in this month, and we're going to use that historical event to speak about it, what is the difference between using that historical event to remember him? Both of them are different types of remembrance. The way he sallallahu alaihi wasallam is remembered, this is where we can discuss too, right? This is another layer. The first thing is it okay, right? That's the first question. The second one, how do we do it? Which is also a valid question. Is the way that people do it, is the way that it is expressed, is what they're doing okay or not? And that's a valid question, right? And this is something that definitely can be discussed. But essentially, is remembering the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam problematic? No. We're actually ordered to remember him. Is remembering him in the month that he was born in problematic? No, because it is part of the general ruling of remembering him, right? Do we not remember him in Rabi'ul Awwal? That would be the counter argument to that. No, obviously nobody's going to say, no, we don't remember him. Do we utilize this historic event to remember him or not? This is the question. And it's a valid question. If I say that this month is Mubarak, this month is blessed, then I need a proof. This is something I need from the Quran, this is something I need from the Sunnah. Was his birth blessed? Absolutely. Nobody differs in that. But just because his birth is blessed, does that make the month blessed? Does that make the day blessed? This I'll need a specific proof for. But if I'm using it again as a historical marker to talk about since he ﷺ was born, I want to use this event to remember him. And do we do the same thing with other religious events? Yes. Before in Dhul Qa'dah, what do we usually do? We start talking about Hajj. In Sha'ban, what do? We usually start talking about Ramadan. Before the last 10 days of Ramadan start, what do? We start talking about the 10. Those are all markers, yes? They're all calendar markers that we use to start initiating discussions about those things or encouraging people to do things. So if we utilize particular events as a means to remember, inshallah, I don't see a problem with that. If we ascribe a specific fadl, if we ascribe a specific virtue, this is where it becomes problematic, because this I need a proof from the Quran and the Sunnah. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu ala khayri khalqin nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.